Huawei pours money into China's chip-making ambitions. According to Goldman Sachs report published on 2nd of July 2020, SMIC would move from 14nm chips to 12nm chips in 2020. It will produce 7nm chips in 2023 and 5nm chips in 2025. The only EU machine manufacturer in the world, ASML's CEO, had the similar opinion on SMIC's potential to produce its own 5nm semiconductor chips. Today we're going to talk about another Chinese tech giant, Huawei, and its ambitions to build an entire semiconductor ecosystem in China. How is Huawei planning to achieve this target? Is it going to build the entire semiconductor supply chain internally, or is there any other way to achieve this target? The short answer is Huawei Investment. Before we continue, if you like what we talk about on this channel, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, and then we'll continue. Blocked by the US from buying many of the chips it needs, Huawei Technologies is stepping up investments in companies that are racing to build China's semiconductor supply chain. The Chinese technology giant is investing in the companies through a fund that it launched in 2019 around the Washington began putting export bans on Huawei. The fund, Huawei Technology Investment, has backed 56 companies since its founding, according to data compiled by PitchBook, a capital market research firm. Almost half of those investments have been made in the past 6 months, according to PitchBook, as the new pain from restrictions on the company's ability to obtain critical chips made using US technology grows. Recently, Huawei said US restrictions pushed its 2021 revenue down by nearly a third. The overwhelming majority of the companies invested in by Huawei are involved in the semiconductor supply chain, according to PitchBook and corporate records. They include emerging players in the manufacturing and design of chips, as well as companies that make semiconductor material, design software, and chip manufacturing equipment. Privately held Huawei doesn't disclose the size of its fund, but it has invested tens of millions of dollars in some companies, according to Tianyancha, a database that tracks corporate registrations in China. Analysts say the fund allows Huawei to nurture potential current and future suppliers, while also providing potential financial returns at a time of booming growth in China's chip sector. Other big Chinese electronic firms run similar investment funds that come with similar benefits, including smartphone makers Xiaomi, Oppo Mobile Telecommunications, and PC giant Lenovo. The supply chain in semiconductors is a long supply chain, said Hui He, the head of China semiconductor research for Omdia, a technology research firm. When Huawei invests in a chip company, they can get priority supply from this chip supplier, especially in a shortage situation. The accelerated pace of Huawei's chip investments comes as the Shenzhen-based company faces increasing strain from the effects of US restrictions. Reduced access to all chips have pummeled Huawei's smartphone sales, curbed its market share in 5G telecom gear, and crippled its chip design subsidiary HiSilicon Technologies. Huawei chief executive Ren Zhengfei has acknowledged the setbacks resulting from American actions, telling employees that to press ahead, the company needs more theoretical breakthroughs, especially in domains like compound semiconductors and material science. Currently, Japan and United States are the leaders in these domains. We must leverage our global platforms to enable our success, he said. China has made self-sufficiency in chip technology a national priority, an initiative that has grown in importance due to a trade war with Washington that has cut off many Chinese companies from US technologies, but many of its efforts have faltered, with at least 6 major Chinese chip-building projects failing over the past 3 years, underscoring the difficulty and sky-high costs associated with developing high-end chips. In 2021, through early December, Chinese chip firms raised $26.5 billion through public offerings, private placements, and asset sales, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence, up 9% from a year earlier. Those sums follow billions previously earmarked by the government for fertilizing China's homegrown chip sector. The sums invested by Huawei are relatively small by the standards of the capital-intensive chip industry, and analysts say the company is a long way away from self-sufficiency in semiconductors. Still, China's chip boom has created a target-rich environment for the Hubble Fund, which is headed by longtime Huawei executive Bai Yi. Mr. Bai was one of the company's first staffers sent to the United States in the early 2000s during a rocky early effort to sell equipment to American telecom carriers. In 2012, Mr. Bai was among a small group of senior Huawei executives who accompanied some US congressional staffers on a tour of Huawei's Shenzhen headquarters as part of a House Intelligence Committee's investigation into Huawei and a rival. The investigation concluded that Huawei's telecom gear posed a national security threat, a finding that the company has repeatedly denied. In 2020, Mr. Bai named to a panel of influential Huawei executives known as the Representatives Commission, charged with approving the work of the company's board of directors. Among Hubble's most recent investments in early December 2021 was Jingtuo Semiconductor Technology, a Suzhou-based maker of specialized equipment used to keep cheap components clean during production. The company contributes to the localization of China's semiconductor equipment. In August 2021, Hubble took a take of about $46 million in Suzhou BNC Chemical, a company that describes itself as China's largest maker of photoresists, a key semiconductor material. In June 2021, Hubble invested $1.5 million in Beijing's RS Laser Optoelectronics Technology, maker of high-power lasers used in chip manufacturing. Huawei spent years and billions of dollars investing in its own chip design capabilities, gradually displacing foreign design chips in its smartphones, servers, and telecom equipment. In recent years, Huawei's smartphone and server chips were viewed by analysts and industry executives as among the most advanced in the world. Its chips, however, were built by outside manufacturers like TSMC, and US restrictions imposed on Huawei in 2020 blocked TSMC and many other companies from manufacturing chips for Huawei because those suppliers use American technology. Huawei executives say the company hasn't laid off any chip engineers and that its workers are designing next-generation products, even though major semiconductor manufacturers remain blocked from building them. They continue their work. Catherine Chen, Huawei's head of public affairs, said in June 2021, "We are confident that the difficulties can be overcome within 2 to 3 years."